Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Sykesville Mayor and Town Council meeting for Monday, January 25th. This meeting is taking place via Zoom US teleconference. In order to give public comment or listen to the meeting, you can call 1-301-715-8592, and the meeting ID is 883-0470-9926. And the password is 247009. So once you enter, you will be placed on mute. Alrighty, call to order. So we're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance followed by a brief moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Have a brief moment of silence. Okay. All right, so public comments, they are limited to 3 minutes per person. Please alert staff that you would like to make a public comment by pressing *9 to raise your hand. We can take public comments, so we can't always discuss your item this evening, but we will get it on a future agenda if so warranted, or get it to the right place. So any comments? Carrie? Anybody raise their hand? Okay.
Does not look like it.
Okay, having heard none, then we'll move on to our consent agenda. This is the minutes from January 11th, and I understand we did have an update to those, so everybody should have received the revised version.
I'll make a motion to approve if there's no discussion.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Alrighty, the consent agenda is approved. For our new business item tonight is the first item is the fiscal year 2019-2020 audit presentation. So we'll get together and turn that over to the auditor, I'm imagining.
We will introduce Wanda Lynn and Ryan Harshman there from our auditing team.
Welcome.
Thank you for having us
Thanks for all your work.
Glad that Ryan can join me this year. He has worked on your audit for many years, and he's been behind the scenes, so you get to finally meet him this year. So we're going to do a high-level overview for you, and Carrie, thank you for having the slides. So we'll jump right in. So the next slide. We have some required communication that you need to be aware of, and there is a letter that provides more detail, but basically we just need to make you aware of what your responsibilities are, which is that the town is responsible for preparing the financial statements and monitoring internal controls. We'll get into the auditor's responsibilities on another page here. Significant accounting policies in your financial statements. You'll notice that note 1 is quite lengthy. The only thing I want to point out this year is that you did have one change to your policy, and that related to the amendment of your minimum stabilization reserve amount. It was changed to be $1 million this year. Attached to the management representation letter that Joe and Craig and the mayor have include our proposed audit adjustments, as well as uncorrected misstatements. They've all been communicated and accepted. Happy to tell you that there were no issues or difficulties encountered. And as part of the audit, we communicate any internal control issues or recommendations that we have. They come in can come in 3 different levels. Material weaknesses would be the most severe, which we have none to report to you. The significant deficiencies, we just have one recommendation related to adjusting journal entries that are made to your records. And we're just recommending that you group them. For recurring entries, just note at the beginning of the fiscal year, what recurring entries are acceptable for Craig to record on a monthly basis, and anything that would be out of the norm, we're recommending that Joe or someone else review what Craig is recommending and adjusting. The other recommendation is that we're just suggesting that you look at your relationship with your grant writing service provider. He's being treated as a contractor, and there are certain rules that the IRS has to follow, and there's no written agreement with him. So we just don't want you to be caught off guard if the IRS would ever happen to come in and would maybe challenge to say that he's actually an employee. So just something to consider. Next slide. Your financial statements include accounting estimates. Some of the most significant ones relate to collectability of taxes and also other receivables. You know, that's more sensitive this year with the pandemic and also the status of the Warfield Complex project. But at this time, no allowance was required or considered necessary. Other large estimates would just be the depreciation on capital assets and the accrued compensated absences and just estimating current versus long-term. And then the net pension liability is very complex and is based on actuarial reports. As far as your sensitive accounting disclosures, in your financial statements, there's a note in there related to the Warfield Complex transaction. The components of the fund balance, which we will go over your groupings tonight for that a little bit later. Again, pension plans have take up several pages of your financial statements with required communication. And then as far as your commitments and contingencies, you had various projects that you had approved but had not funded as of June 30th. So they're just summarized in your financial statements, as well as a general statement about the pandemic. We anticipate that there will be a financial impact, but really at this point, you don't know what the extent will be. Next slide. Okay, so our objectives of the audit, we perform the audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. And our goal was to obtain reasonable but not absolute assurance that the financial statements are free of material misstatement. We do that on a test basis of examining your supporting documents and disclosures. We are also looking at all of your estimates, and we evaluate the overall financial statement presentation. So we did issue an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion, the best opinion that you can receive. And that is both on the governmental activities of the town, which is a long-term look at the statements on the accrual basis, and also the fund financial statements, which is more of a near-term look at the statements. And that's what you are reviewing monthly. All right, next slide, and we'll let Ryan jump into some financial highlights.
Yep, thanks, Wanda. Yeah, I just want to give you guys a really high-level overview of your financial statements here. So as Wanda said, the general fund is on the shorter-term basis, and that's what you guys are really basing your budget on, and your annual cash flow type thing. And so what you'll see here on the balance sheet is your cash increased from last year. Some of the notes receivable, most of that's from the Warfield note, which we'll talk about in a minute, and then some just other receivables and other assets. So you have total assets of $6.7 million, total liabilities on the fund level of $423,000. And then here's all your fund balances, and we'll get into the details of what make up that fund balance for a total fund balance of $6,291,314. Next slide. here you'll see a breakdown of where all your revenue comes from on the fund. And you'll see that, the vast majority of it comes from your tax revenue, which increased over last year. About 108,000 of that increase was in income taxes that were received. What else did I know? Liquid. So, and then you also see that miscellaneous income was much higher last year, and that related to the Warfield, the liquidation of the Warfield complex. And then also you'll see that in charges for services that decreased this year as well. And that was related to some impact fees that were received related, I believe they were related to Warfield in 2019, and there was less building going on this year. So next slide. And then this is a breakdown of your expenses. And the general government, that increased. Part of that was related to the micro grants related to COVID that were given out in 2020. And then you also see that public safety has increased because of hazard pay paid to police employees, and also the hiring of a new police officer in 2020. Next slide. And again, as Wanda said, the government-wide statement of net position, that's really much more longer-term basis of accounting for the full accrual basis. So that includes all your debt, all of your fixed assets, infrastructure, and things like that. So that's really what's new on this one versus the general fund balance sheet. So we have net property and equipment of 8.5 million, and deferred inflows and outflows are related to the pension liability. And you also see that there's the full accrued compensated absences and net pension liabilities are also included on this basis accounting. So your total net position on the full accrual basis is $14,175,000 and $226. Next slide. Here's your fund balance breakdowns. The next slide will have the breakdown of that, but you'll see that the unassigned balance includes that $1 million stabilization reserve that changed this year as well. So if you'd like to move to the next slide. Non-spendable balance, basically these are amounts that you can't spend in the near term because in the case of prepaid expenses, it's already been paid, and the notes receivable, it's a longer term basis. So it's not available to be spent at the current moment. And then restricted fund balance, there's $195,000 from the Gatehouse Museum, and then $250,000 for public project funds, and $1.1 million for the Warfield complex renovations or escrow. Next slide. And then we have our assigned balance here, which is amounts that have been put aside by the town for various uses there. I believe there was a change to the capital reserve and the repaving reserve this year. You'll see those are the largest balances. I'm not going to run through all of them, but those are the main ones with that, and the impact fees and for Warfield complex. And then on the next slide, it's just more of the same for a total money that the town has set aside of 1.4 million. Next slide. Like I said, it's just additional stuff. You can keep going. Next slide. And then one significant item that we wanted to point out is the Warfield complex. There's restricted cash held in escrow of 1.1 million to be used for parcel D. And then also there was a note to be paid by the developer to the town of approximately $1 million. It was due June 30th, 2020. which did not get paid, which relates to when the developer would sell and various lots over there and that project. But so the town still believes that note to be collectible. We just wanted to point out that it is currently in default because the maturity date that we had that was in the agreement was June 30th of 2020. Next slide. And then we have one new accounting standard that's coming up. It'll be effective July 1, 2021. Relates to leases. So this will affect how, it's not going to affect the timing of recording of revenues or expenses or anything like that, but it's going to make your balance sheet a little bit larger. And then the other thing, so the town joined the LEOPS pension plan a while ago, so that's gonna, last year, the contributions to the pension plan roughly doubled as a result of joining LEOPS. And so the net pension liability is based on the contributions from the prior year. And so we would expect when the state allocates the portion of that net pension liability next year, we would expect that liability to roughly double on the government-wide statement of net position. And that's all we got. If you have any questions, let us know. Or if Wanda has anything to add.
Very high level overview, but certainly if you have any questions and if anything comes up at a later time, don't hesitate to reach out to us. And we definitely appreciate Craig and Joe's assistance.
Ryan, if I could ask, or Ryan or Wanda, if I could ask just the change on the how the leases will be reported. You said it'll impact the balance sheet. Is that something we'll just have to look at? Is that basically the term of the lease? Would that have to be recorded as a collectible at some point? Is that what's going to end up happening?
Right. So it's going to relate to the cell tower leases, and so you'll record a receivable on one side, and there'll be some sort of a liability on the other side. I
gotcha. So it's just the cell tower. It's not other leases that the town may have with, say, other business enterprises within town. Because we have a restaurant that in a building we own that has a long-term lease.
Well, it could be that as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then just for really just a comment to council, I know Ryan briefly went over some of the assigned fund balances. These are something that you all will see again, certainly before the end of this fiscal year, as an attempt on at least staff side to clean up some of these fund balances. There's a lot of assigned fund balances that we have that simply have no reason to be assigned anymore. And those funds could really be released into our unassigned fund balances and then reallocated to whatever project we decide. So, again, there's a lot of little dollar amounts that we can clean up and make that consolidate quite a bit in that area. So at some point between now and the end of the fiscal year, we'll, like I said, Craig or I will certainly bring a presentation back to show which ones we believe we should keep and maintain as an assigned fund balance, and then the others that we just want to release back into the, I guess, available fund balances to spend on other potential projects.
So I had one question in reference to the couple of findings that you had. Are those findings considered significant deficiencies, or what are they labeled as?
The first one about the journal entries, we did consider that to be a significant deficiency.
Is that the only one?
Yes.
And so what's the practice for us needing to document what our path is forward so that we can get rid of this next year? Do we have to document any processes or changes, or how does that work?
You do not have to do anything on our behalf. It is good practice for you to have a conversation and for, probably Joe and Craig to come up with a plan of action and communicate that to you. And certainly at the next audit, we would evaluate that.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes.
Lynn? Yeah. Wanda, it's
Yes.
Craig. Isn't that a timing issue though? I mean, with the entries, I could have made them in time and then they wouldn't be a misstatement or whatever. So the entries you're suggesting for me to make, obviously, right?
No, I'm saying ones that you make throughout the year,
Yeah.
not related to the audit.
For
Oh.
the processes. Which,
Oh.
So I think it's good that they identified this, and then we're going to get a plan going forward for that. For recurring journal entries, we'll have those identified at the beginning of the year, and then have Joe approve journal entries. I think going forward as any ones that aren't on the recurring
Correct.
list is how I think it would be fixed.
I'm on board. I got it. Sorry.
And, I'm super excited because we got a clean audit.
I
for the
know.
first time
Isn't
in
it
a long
wonderful?
time because
Yes.
getting rid of that Warfield thing. So so that's awesome. So my question is on the LEOPS. How do you guys see on your end from the audit perspective? How do you see that leveling off? I mean, I understand it might double again, but when is it? Is there any way to get a handle on that, or is that just based on the actuarials, or how does that?
Well, so the reason it doubled was because you joined LEOPS.
Right.
So, because, the contributions for that are more than for the general pension plan. And so I wouldn't expect it to double again. Now, you are having some credit for payments that were already paid in when the employees were transferred. In 20 or 25 years, whenever that amortization runs off, it's going to increase again. But as of now, you're getting credit for that. So that's reducing your contributions in that regard. So, I'm not going to speculate on exactly how much it's going to increase next year, but that's all, that's for the actuaries. But
Right. Okay.
the increase this year was certainly abnormal.
Right. Okay.
Well, and also just to note that just the way the pension works, you're always a year behind when we're recording it on your financial statements, because that's the way the actuarial reports work. So even though you joined LEOPS the other year, you really did not see the full financial impact of that. So we're saying next year will be the full year that you'll see the impact of that, all the liability.
Right.
You wouldn't anticipate as huge of shifts. I wouldn't anticipate after that.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying that. And then just to point out to the council, I think we need to be cognizant of the significant contributions for this coming up in the future. It's going to be significant. So I think it's going to be something we need to just keep an eye on. Okay. I think that was all I had for the moment. Anybody else? Any other questions for the auditors? Okay. Well, I think is that it, Joe? We're good?
I think that's it for the audit.
Okay.
So thank you again, Wanda and Brian.
Yes.
I know you guys, you've been working hard on this audit. We've been bugging you. So thanks for the presentation. And again, we look forward to starting again here in a couple months.
Absolutely. All right. Have a good night. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is that the mayor's phone?
Yeah, that's the mayor's phone. Sorry about that. Thought I had that off. Okay. All right. Our next, let me get back to my agenda. All right. So our next item is the introduction of ordinance number 2021-01. And this is for fiscal year 2021 budget revisions. I know Joe had talked to you about bringing this to us from the last meeting.
Yeah, I think I'd warned you that, typically the first budget revision is just kind of a relatively minor number, but we knew, given some of the capital projects that we had to pull into a current fiscal year, that this number was going to be a lot larger than what we typically see in the first budget revision of the year. So as expected, we are presenting a rather large budget revision, again, just over $500,000, $518,606. Most of that is related directly to capital projects that were scheduled to be done in FY20. So the fiscal year that you just heard the audit review on had to get pulled into current fiscal year. Most of those delays were directly related to coronavirus and just delaying project starts. So I will go through. Hopefully you've had a chance to really look at all of the information that was provided, both in the ordinance and in the revenue and expense detail. I'll go through it very briefly, but if there's any specific line item that you want me to address, please just go ahead and ask. But like I said, most of the changes were due to grant projects. So just looking at revenue specifically, most of the changes were done in the revenues from miscellaneous sources. Again, that is where we collect grant revenues or reimbursed expenses. So anytime we expense something for a capital project that we have a grant for, it ends up hitting that line item. So again, that's where you see most of the changes. And then particularly with the splash pad work, the matching funds for that came from, and you just saw it in the audit presentation, but it's the Warfield Public Project Fund. There was $100,000 that we were pulling from that. So that's also in that miscellaneous revenues. As far as expenses go, a few highlights. Admittedly, in the administration department, there were two larger ones. One is some improvements we're making to the council chambers. These are technology upgrades so that as we come out of this pandemic and we're able to meet in person again, we will be able to broadcast similarly to what we're doing now. We've had a lot of positive response from these broadcasts. So again, we wanted to make those improvements to the council chambers. Those again are coronavirus relief funding or CRF funding monies that are paying for that upgrade. And then as it relates to the comprehensive plan, so the comprehensive plan was actually split between 2 fiscal years. And unfortunately, again, due to the pandemic, we did not spend as much as we thought we were going to spend on that project last fiscal year. So we had to pull all of the expense or the remaining expense, which I think was around $76,000 into current fiscal year. So the overall cost is not changing of that project. It's just the split between the 2 fiscal years had to be adjusted. So again, we're just pulling more of it into current fiscal year. With regard to public safety, most of that is related to the hazard pay that again is reimbursed through the coronavirus relief fund. Streets and roads, we had to increase the street lighting electric service line item. And again, that was for the lighting project, transferring everything to LEDs. But again, that is also reimbursed through grant funding. So you'll see the offset back on the revenue side. Similarly with park maintenance, there was the project for the demolition of the girls' shelter. We had to put that in park maintenance because really there was just no other category to assign that expense to. But again, that's a grant reimbursed project. Historic buildings was the kitchen there at the, the historic buildings was actually repairs that needed to be done at now Sykesville station. So again, when they were doing the renovations down there, there was some structural work that needed to be done, mainly with the floor joists that was discovered when the renovations were happening. So again, that was part of the town's responsibility in that repair. Then the Gatehouse Museum was the kitchen. So as you remember last year, there was a lot of repairs done to the exterior of the building. There was some termite damage underneath the floors there of the kitchen. The kitchen had to be really taken completely apart. So this was just kind of finishing up all of the work that had to be done there at the Gatehouse. Employee benefits. I know we just talked about retirements, both the general contributions to retirement and also the LEOPS program that came in a little bit higher than what we anticipated. So kind of like what Wanda just said, or Wanda and Ryan just said, we didn't see the full impact until current fiscal year. So I think last fiscal year was only 6 or 7 months worth of LEOPS, and then this fiscal year was the full brunt of it. So we'll be able to forecast that a little bit better moving forward. But we also saw some savings in the workman's comp category, and then also we did receive notice from Legit, our health insurance provider, that we will be getting another annual rebate. That's pretty typical that we get some sort of rebate every year regarding our health insurance. So again, we will be getting that again current year. And then within capital outlay, again, this is to make up for all of the capital projects in parks, mainly the splash pad, the new playground at Cooper Park, and the contribution we're making to Howard County for the now completed parking project at South Branch. So again, all of those were originally scheduled for last fiscal year, but again, due to delays, we had to pull them all into current fiscal year. So again, very brief going through each of those changes. I'm happy to answer any questions if any particular line item jumped out to anybody, or if you have a question about any of those line items. And if not, staff is certainly recommending that council approve the introduction of this ordinance tonight. And then we'll have a public hearing and adoption scheduled for February 8th.
Hey, any questions for Joe on that? On the
No, I
adjustment?
don't have any.
Me neither.
Okay.
Thank you for the
Alright,
detail, Joe, by the way. That helps
No
Yep.
problem.
immensely.
definitely.
Yeah, and the Excel spreadsheet was very nice too. Thanks for that, Craig. Appreciate that going out.
Yep. And thanks, Craig. I know it's been quite a shift for Craig on switching from the private sector to the government sector. So overall, Craig, I think you've done a good job. We'll get out a couple of the last bugs, and by next year, this thing will be clean and smooth, baby. So thank
Very
you.
smooth.
He'll be an old hand at it.
Yes. Yeah.
No problem.
But overall, I think you've done a great job. So,
We're getting there. Thank you.
yes. All right. And then,
All right,
okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the introduction of ordinance number 2021-01 FY 2021 budget revisions.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any abstentions? Oops, any opposed first? Any opposed? Okay, and then any abstentions? Okay, all right, so that ordinance is approved, and then we'll get it for the next meeting for adoption. Okay. All right, great. And then that brings us to our announcements and reports. Our next mayor and town council meeting is on Monday, February 8th, 2021. This too will be a Zoom meeting. We have some volunteer opportunities still available on the Historic District Commissions, Spark, Police Auxiliary, and a crossing guard. Be a great time to be the crossing guard. You don't have to do a lot of work yet, I don't think. But you can email town@sykesville.net for more information, and Carrie will get you all the details on this. The town is also looking for individuals to serve on the Board of Election Supervisors. As you know, we have an election coming up in May, and you can email at town@sykesville.net for more information. And then staff updates. Anything, Joe, you got that's...
Yeah, just a few things. And since you mentioned elections coming up, the town or staff will be presenting at least some information regarding the election, either at our next meeting or our second meeting there in February. Just because, there is still the concern with the pandemic, and, there will be some things that we try to clarify and make, let's just say, more readily available, and mainly nomination forms and mail-in ballots. There's some things that we're preparing for, so that if people don't want to actually come in on election day, that we're ready for the potential influx of mail-in votes. And again, because we're having virtual meetings, we want to try to make sure the nomination process is as clear and open to everybody that may, in fact, want to run. But like I said, that information, we'll present that sometime in February. And then also, just to make everybody aware, we did receive an annexation petition. I hope I've warned you about this before, but it was the Schoolhouse Road. There's some, I guess, half properties that are half in, half out of the town of Sykesville. We did finally receive the annexation petition. So again, a resolution, I guess, accepting that petition and then starting it on the review process for ultimate, hopefully, approval at some later date will be presented likely at the first meeting in February as well. So just keep that on your radar, that in order to start that process, we have to present a resolution to you.
Joe, is that the sliver of property that?
Yeah, it's if you see
kind of like a sharp triangle, if you will.
Yeah, if you see the zoning map, it's kind of there on the south end, and it's. Again, I can't explain it. We've talked to several people at the county. They can't really explain it either as to how that ever happened. But as far back as we can go, the maps have always been that way and had that kind of little sliver that's been cut out. So hopefully this annexation will correct that. And that's all I have, other than, be safe everyone tomorrow morning. It might be slick out there. So we're keeping an eye on the weather. Our guys are certainly ready to respond if it does turn into a little bit of a slick mess out there tomorrow morning.
Great, thanks, Joe. Okay, and then so that brings up you, Chief. I see you got everything worked out.
Finally, yes.
Yeah,
Nothing like being familiar with your equipment. I'm working off of
Right.
my wife's equipment here and not very familiar with it. So I apologize for the technical difficulties.
That's okay. I see you had, like Stacy said, I'm sure you had some good IT support there. So
Well, she wasn't here initially, and I was really panicking.
oh, well, there you go. Well, good. You got it worked out. All right. So it's all you.
All right, very brief one for this period. It's only covering 2 weeks, January 6th through the 20th, as you can see. Total 329 events. Really the only thing noteworthy are the 201 patrol checks and 33 traffic enforcement initiatives. Again, very short for those 2 weeks. We handled 10 incident reports, which are on the second page. And if anybody has any questions about any of those reports, be more than happy to answer those.
Any questions for the chief? Anybody's got any questions?
I did want to
Chief,
highlight.
no question. Sorry, go ahead, Chief.
I apologize. No, I did want to highlight just one of those cases you'll see on the second page. I don't know if Carrie has it on the screen here, but it was a call where we were actually assisting other agencies. We responded outside the town to Eldersburg for a report of a potential suicide by handgun. Sergeant Kilgore and Officer Kirkner responded, and actually our auxiliary officer, Annie Young, was riding with Officer Kirkner. And so they responded to the scene. We're actually the first units on the scene, what turned out to be a very dangerous situation. Once other units arrived, our guys were actually involved in getting 2 children out of the house safely, as well as the wife. And actually, Sergeant Kilgore was actually able to make contact with the suspect, at this point, barricaded suspect inside the house by cell phone. And Sean actually was able to talk the guy out of the house peacefully. So phenomenal effort by our people. I received praise from the sheriff's office for specifically Sergeant Kilgore's role in this event, as well as our other 2 officers. And just goes to show you, how important it is for us to work hand in hand with our other agencies in this county, and how short the manpower is, and how important it is for us to respond when we can, just outside our town, to help other agencies, because they very well could have saved several lives on this particular evening. So phenomenal job by our people on this.
Grateful for Sergeant Kilgore's capabilities and his mental health experiences. They've come in and as a lifesaver multiple times in my tenure. So
yeah, that's what I wanted to say is this isn't his first time doing this. So he has experience, and he's come a long way from
absolutely
over the years. So thanks.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I think he's got a lot more experience than maybe some of the other officers in the training with that stuff.
It came in handy in this particular case.
Absolutely. Sure. So and it's good. And we've had a great partnership with the sheriff's office. So even though sometimes these are outside of town, the reciprocation's been a lot better under Chief Spalding and the sheriff's partnership. I got to say that it's been a lot better. So, thanks, Chief, for that. That partnership's been really, you and Sheriff DeWeese have made it's been a big difference from what it was in the past. So
I appreciate
it was kind of lopsided. We were always going out, but they weren't always coming. But I've noticed a couple times in town, I've seen our car go down, and then right after them, I've seen a couple sheriff cars come in, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty good, because we wouldn't have seen that kind of partnership in the past. So thank you.
Oh, it's a 2-way street, without a doubt.
Yeah.
So in the last council meeting, Chief, you had mentioned that you all were successful in catching someone nearly red-handed in I believe it was car theft type of thing over at Raincliff. Well, I got to actually speak with the folks that called into the police office in reference to that, and got to thank them personally. And I was able to talk to the rest of the group that was at the annual meeting about encouraging them to get the ring system, or if they have the ring system, to not necessarily to get it, but if they have it, then to connect with the Stay Safe app, or whatever you call that as it goes. So just wanted to let you know, and that helps with the resource issues too, right? When the community is helping ourselves stay safe. And what's interesting is that person wasn't even at their house. They were at someone else's house. I think it was a family member's house in Carroll County. Mm-hmm. Right. And so they were still able to catch them because of how the system works. So it worked really well.
Yeah, I spoke to that lady just last week, actually, because we're in the process of preparing that case for trial. And since she had been the initial 911 caller, they wanted her name and address for court purposes. And very, very nice lady. And just again, a very successful outcome in that case, thanks to the Ring video and fast response by our office.
Okay, so any other comments or questions for the chief or? Okay. All right, chief, thank you. Appreciate everything. All right, so let's see here. All right, our next item would be the council committee reports. So, well, we'll start with you, Jeremiah. You're right there, so.
Sounds good. So I got a couple of updates. We did have a Raincliff meeting, and it was the annual meeting. And, we talked through some of the business for their year. They voted on, what the budget was going to be. And they're also interested in doing some committees over there. So they're looking at a welcoming committee, social committee, an architectural committee, and a pool committee. I thought that was an interesting one, the pool committee. So very interesting. Different committees that they have, and it looks like they have a lot of great community involvement. I let them know about the upcoming election process so that they could throw their names in the hat if that was something of interest to any of them, since some of them understand how the community involvement pieces work. And then also they mentioned that, so the president of Raincliff actually talked about, and I got it wrong, Joe, it's called Quantum. It's a company called Quantum. And I'm about to get really technical and over my head when I talk, but they're looking at potentially looking at mesh receivers and increasing the ability to kind of pull off of the fiber network. That's the trunk line that goes, I think, under Route 32. And they had some interest, and I mentioned to Joe earlier that they had some interest in seeing whether or not the town wanted to partner with them in this pursuit. And I think we've talked about this in the past, and the investment in doing this for the town is pretty high. But I did want to at least make you all situationally aware that there could be a conversation happening between Brendan and Joe in reference to this. In addition to this, pivoting a little bit, the Maryland Municipal League has started up because legislative sessions are occurring. There's been 2 meetings in the month of January so far. I was only able to go to one of them. There's another one this coming Wednesday, and we're starting to work through the various bills. And as I'm starting to understand how the process works in the first couple of sessions, we're all pretty zealous, and we want to be involved in all of it. And then we kind of transition a little bit as we continue to move into the process. And we have, no comment on no position on some of the bills as we kind of navigate through the process. But that's all happening. And finally, I sat in on a Carroll County Board of Education meeting for a couple of hours a couple of weeks ago. And of interesting note for this is that about an hour and 20 minutes in, the health department got on the line and started talking through the vaccine distribution methodology for the county. And I just wanted to share this with the community that is in the town. There's a lot of opinions in reference to how the schools should move forward. But I'll tell you, it's very interesting information that you get from the health department directly on these calls. And some pertinent information is that 2 weeks ago, the county had 1,500 vaccines. Last week, they had about 1,400. And where they are in the process for distribution as of the end of last week was somewhere between 1A and 1B for the prioritization. And so you can go on the health department's website and take a look at that distribution methodology, but I thought it was pertinent to the citizens in our town there. And that's
Great.
it.
Yep, thank you. And yeah, we do have some guidance on that as well. Just real quick on the while we're on that topic, I'll just add it in real quick because I've been coordinating with Joe with the other mayors about that exact thing about the schedule. So it's effective today, actually, they started with the 1C, but obviously it's dependent on how many. Oh, and to make you guys aware, which is the mayors were more concerned about obviously staff really to make sure that like our public works guys got vaccinated. That's kind of our priority. Police obviously are already getting vaccinated I believe in Carroll County. So I think our guys have been, we've done a pretty good job with law enforcement in Carroll County, but our next kind of priority was staff. So they are in this 1C category as well as local elected officials. I figured I'd throw that out there. So, but it's contingent as Jeremiah had said, on dosage. So, and after conversations with Joe, I think the county, the health department, Ed Singer, they're like you said, they're a couple weeks behind, I think, from the actual implementation of based on doses. So, and they're working through Board of Education, obviously first, trying to get the teachers vaccinated, and then our senior population, and then they'll start. So we're probably going to be about 2 weeks behind before they start to hit into these, even though they're in effect. It's going to take a few weeks to catch up a little bit based just on availability of doses. And hopefully there's also Johnson & Johnson single dose vaccine that might be available coming out soon. They're submitting that for approval. So maybe in 2 weeks, there'll be another vaccine available as well, which should help alleviate some of the backlog, so we're kind of seeing some optimism. So just wanted to throw that in while we were on that topic. But we'll keep you posted on that as we get more info. I think Joe's been doing a great job of sort of keeping in touch with the health department and sort of staying up. The mayors are having a conference call tomorrow evening. So we're going to talk about a number of topics, and that'll be one of them, obviously. And we're trying to just keep our staff, primarily our public works and staff on their radar, just so they get doses available. We'll start with them, so. Okay. All righty. And we'll go to Mark. You're next on the screen, Mark. Planning Commission.
There was no Planning Commission meeting, so I had nothing to report. But I don't know if you just saw, but I did send a link about COVID vaccine. I become 1C eligible tomorrow, so I'm interested in it. I thought I'd pass it on to you guys.
Happy birthday, Mark.
All righty. Okay, thank you. And then Leo, you're next on my screen. So any updates on downtown Sykesville connection?
Yep, just had to unmute myself, sorry. Yeah, we had a board meeting last Monday, and it was primarily focused again on the PR company report that they gave us, as well as finalizing everything to get the downtown Sykesville connection totally up to a 501c3, transitioning away from the company that's been handling our funds and just getting everything centralized. Our next board meeting is Monday, February 15th. And really the only significant thing since the last town meeting was Julie had applied for a grant through the state of Maryland as part of a Main Street program through the Department of Housing and Community Development. And we did receive, we were awarded that grant totaling $52,292 from the Department of Housing and Community Development Main Street funds. Only 15% of that grant goes toward our costs. The balance of that will be used for a rent relief program for the small businesses in the town of Sykesville, as long as they can demonstrate a loss of rent through the COVID pandemic we're currently going through. So there'll be roughly $45,000 that town businesses will be able to apply for to recoup rent losses that they've had over the past almost year now. So that will be significant. Julie will be posting things soon on website, Facebook, other things to set up the application process. But none of that would have been done without Julie's work.
Leo, do the businesses have to meet a certain threshold, or if they've lost any rent, then they get to apply? Is there?
Yeah, there are thresholds. It's 20% 1 month rent relief for the first quarter, 40% over the other quarter. So it's broken down in quarters over the year as to how much they can recoup versus what they've lost.
Thank you.
And just to clarify, Leo, is that revenue? Because like with the paycheck protection, I was going to touch on that a little bit on the second round. You have to demonstrate 25% loss with any individual quarter. Is that what you're talking about? Because I'm just how do you rent loss? I don't understand that a little bit.
It's to help them pay rent, so they have to show income loss.
Okay, right, revenue.
So I probably misstated that, but it's income loss to help them pay their rent.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Okay. All right. Perfect. That's awesome. So yeah, congratulations. And we'll send a shout out to Julie on that again. So great job, man. So yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yep.
I know that at the very beginning, Julie had applied for a grant to help the business owners, and we were thinking that this would be phase 2. Is this that grant, or is this an additional grant that she applied for?
I think this might be an additional grant she applied for. There was another one that we did not get. It's in my notes. I don't know which one it was, but there was a heartbeat grant. There was a second round of that we did not get.
Gotcha.
So this was a different one.
Thank you, Julie.
Yep. This was a separate Maryland Strong Economic Recovery Initiative grant.
Right, and definitely much needed. I think almost every business can demonstrate a loss, so this should be very helpful. Yeah, so it's good.
So, hey, Leo, just to ask you another question on that, is the downtown Sykesville connection going to be setting up the guidelines? Are they the people that apply to, or does it got to go through the state?
No, it'll be through it. The grant will be paid to Downtown Sykesville Connection, so the applications will go through them.
All right, excellent. So that'll be nice. It'll be quicker for them to get relief than going through the state. Thanks.
Yeah, that's good to know. Any other questions for Leo, or any more stuff, Leo? Or is that?
Nope, that's all I have. Our next board meeting is February 15th.
Okay. All righty. Okay, Al, you're up next.
Yeah, so the first business liaison meeting is Friday, so I'll have something to report in February on that one. So looking forward to having a meeting with them, and I'll pass this along to them, Leo. I'm sure they'll know about it before I will, but that's awesome news.
Okay. All right, and then Anna.
Historic District did not meet since our last mayor and town council meeting, and we do not have anything on the agenda for tomorrow, so tomorrow's meeting's been canceled. That's it.
All right, thank you. And then Stacy.
Thank you.
Parks and Rec.
Thank you, Mayor. Parks and Rec, as a committee, has not met since our last town council meeting, but we will be meeting this Thursday, which is the 28th, and we do that via Zoom at 6 p.m. I have, as a representative of the Keep Sykesville Beautiful organization, met with Julie Della Maria and Becky, whose last name I unfortunately don't have at my fingertips. I mentioned in our last meeting that she basically founded this group called Trash Troopers here in Sykesville and Eldersburg area. And so the three of us met last week to discuss collaborating and putting our resources together with respect to volunteering, gathering our volunteers for the purposes of beautifying our community, specifically with litter pickup. We discussed some COVID compliant events that our Spark volunteers, in combination with Keep Sykesville Beautiful volunteers, in combination with the Trash Trooper volunteers, could participate in together. One of those events that we're hoping to put together is something called plogging, which is not something I'm sure anyone at this table has heard of before because it's rather new, and it is picking litter while jogging. And it brings together the avid runners, of which I am not, and those that care about, beautifying our community and reducing litter and trash. So that's just a little talking point there for you. The next time you're sitting around with some young people, throw the word clogging out and see who knows what it is. And I guess that's it for now. I did say we're meeting this Thursday at 6. So public's welcome to join us, and at the very least, watch live on Facebook or play it back. That's it.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I gotta try that once. Clogging. Running and picking up trash. I like.
Oh, and I'm so sorry. One other thing, we do have a tab on the Downtown Sykesville Connections website. Well, actually, two. We're doing a volunteer portal with respect to Keep Sykesville Beautiful as part of the overall Sykesville Keep Sykesville Beautiful tab on the Downtown Sykesville Connections website. That's all.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
All righty. Okay, and I think I've gotten everybody else on that. So Jack over at the Gatehouses, we had some conversations with him about getting some new presentation stuff going. So he's working on a presentation of the Patterson family story and the Napoleon connection. So he's going to try to get an exhibit on that, as well as Frank Brown, the former Maryland governor of Sykesville. And he hopes to have one of them ready for when everybody is vaccinated and can come to the museum again. So it's going to work on that now and get things prepared for when we can open back up again. Not a whole lot going on at the schoolhouse. We're trying to get somebody, I know Joe was going to talk to one of the contractors that was working over at the Gatehouse and see if we could maybe get them to take a look at the flooring. So we got a little issue there, just one little part of the floor that needed repair. So we're going to try to get that expedited before they get back to the homework club at the schoolhouse again. So, because I know that's a vital thing that Pat does. And then I forgot to mention that myself and Council President Grassley attended the quarterly meeting. It hasn't been quarterly for the MML in December, which was good. And we had, believe it or not, we had Congressman Jamie Raskin join us, which was kind of unexpected to have him at a quarterly meeting. So, and it was good. He gave us an update on the HEROES Act, some of the things that are coming from the relief. At the time, of course, the second round of the Paycheck Protection Program, which I think is important for our small business. So if you can demonstrate a 25% loss of revenue in any one quarter, you can reapply for funds again. And this has been huge. And it's limited now to some of the smaller businesses. So I think most of our businesses can also qualify for that and get a second, people who got them the first, especially the restaurants, they get a 3.5% bump on their thing. So it'll hugely help places like Beck's and who've been just hammered because of this pandemic. So so that was pretty awesome. That's coming out. I just wanted to, and I know Al's going to talk to them about that. So that was a good meeting. And we also, the one of the biggest topics on there was the meeting with the Robert McCoy, who's the new fire chief. And so he gave us a complete update of what his role is and how they're working. I think the goal here is to transition to probably a paid firefighter force over the next coming years. And I want to send a shout out to all of our volunteers right now, because I got to tell you, all the volunteer fire folks and EMS, they save us probably over $26 million a year in this county. But unfortunately, they're just not getting the people moving up into these to do this like they used to. It used to be a lot more involvement. And then, of course, the funding. So we talked about funding and stuff and how they're going to raise funds and how they're going to. So it was really nice to get just to have him meet with us all and give us an update. So that was good. So just wanted to touch on that. And then I think that's about it on that. I'm just making sure I didn't forget anything else. Oh, and then Delegate Krebs was on the meeting as well. And she had mentioned one of the things that I don't know that people, there was in some of these bills, there's liability issues. So I just want to, put that on your radar. Obviously we made them aware that, or made Congressman Raskin to look out for it, but some of these things don't protect businesses. Like if an employee were to get sick while working, for instance, get COVID-19, there's potential liability in that. So they were trying to make sure that didn't come to pass. In some of these bills, people have put legislation in there that would make businesses liable for that, which is really crazy. Because they're currently exempt from that. For instance, if you get the flu at work, you can't sue your employer. And I think, one of the things we were trying to make clear is how would you even be able to tell where you got COVID-19? It'd be very difficult to prove where you picked up the virus. So anyway, that was one of the important highlights of it. So other than that, we got the mayor's conference on the 5th, and I will be doing my best to attend that. It's all virtual, and it's pretty much on February 5th, most of the day. So I'm going to do my best to get in there and attend. I think we're having some presentations in there that look pretty interesting. So I'll go to that and bring back what I can for you guys. And that should be about it. Anything else that anybody needs to bring up? Hearing nothing else, I think that brings us to the end. Right.
Motion to adjourn.
Friendly reminder that cover your recycling with something so it doesn't blow away this Wednesday and Thursday nights, because it's to be windy. So that's the whole litter thing that happens without us.
Right.
Being mindful.
And good news, and I got to give Joe credit for some of this because we've been working on the budget, but we're putting in some new recycling containers in our budget coming up. So it's a little costly, but it's going to alleviate that problem finally once and for all. We're going to get some bigger containers with some lids. So thanks for bringing that up. But stack them on top and then cover the top. So
piece of cardboard folded over top of anything.
Yes, right.
Just go plugging on Thursday.
Yeah, I'm right behind you, Al.
Yeah,
right.
Gonna cut into my time.
Yeah. Did you have something, Mark? I didn't. I saw you leaning in. Are you any?
No. I'm just saying that if I had one lid, I could stack, but without one lid, one thing or another is going to blow away. So I'm all about getting lids, at least one lid out. That's what we're after.
Right now, So gonna give Joe credit for that. They've been working on it, and it's in the budget. It's a big item. It's a big number, but I think it's a recurring problem. And I think the bigger containers, hopefully with more education of what to put in those containers, will help people do a better job of recycling and feel more inclined to do it. So we're always trying to increase those numbers, and I think that'll help. And it never fails for whatever reason. Whenever recycling day is, it's like the windiest day of the year. I'm just like, why is it always windy on recycling day? It's like Murphy's Law. So, but so thanks for pointing it out. Put the heavy stuff on top if you can. Okay. All right. So we have a motion on the floor to adjourn.
Second.
All right. We got a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you guys. And we'll see you all soon.
Thank you.
Have a good
Thanks,
night.